Greg from Houston, Texas. He said, I'm getting really tired of seeing the Arch Manning hype. I'm tired of seeing Arch being put on all these social graphics as the best returning player or the best quarterback. He hasn't played a big game yet. It's just because his last name is Manning. Tell me I'm wrong. Well, Greg, which graphics are you talking about? I need that first. I need to know which social media graphic, which person, which company defined Arch Manning as the best returning player or the best returning quarterback. Show me that first, because I haven't seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, Greg. I'm saying I haven't seen it. But then secondly, let's be very careful here. Now, I'm not just talking to Greg. I'm talking to everyone. Remember a generation ago, a guy by the name of Tim Tebow comes through Florida. And by the time he leaves Florida, I'm being told Tim Tebow is the most polarizing player in college football. And even at the time, I was still really young. Even at the time, I remember thinking, what's polarizing about Tim Tebow? So I had some buddies that hated Tebow, a bunch of Georgia fans mainly. So they don't just hate him because of that Gator logo or the fact that he beat them more times than not. They hated him when you really got down to it, and you had them be honest with you. They hated Tebow because he was overexposed. Everyone talked about him. He's on the cover of every magazine. He is the lead topic on SportsCenter and College Football Live and College Football Final. It's Tebow everywhere, Tebow Mania, as they called him. So their answer was, I'm going to hate Tim Tebow. Well, Tim Tebow didn't write a single article about himself. Tim Tebow didn't host a single segment about himself. So I always wondered, hey, quick time out. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you're not, make sure you do. It's free. It doesn't obligate you or sign you up for anything. It just helps us keep the channel free. All right, back to the show. Then, just like I'll wonder about Arch Manning this year, do you hate Arch Manning or do you hate the overcoverage of Arch Manning? I would think it's the latter disguised as the former. So what we'll do on this show is we'll talk about Arch Manning as the situation warrants, but I'll tell you ahead of time what my expectations are. Like he's number 2 over at FanDuel in the Heisman odds right now. That's high to me. I expect Arch Manning to play good enough for Texas to contend for a playoff spot. Anything above and beyond that, I'll be happy with. But I will not be disappointed if that guy doesn't light it up and rewrite the record books in year one. Now, the hype train is going to be such that if you buy into that, there's probably nothing he can do to match it. I mean, very rarely does a player, of that caliber end up meeting the hype. And if they do, that's great. But I don't expect him to be that. So I'm not going to be let down if he's just the 7th best quarterback in the country this year. That's where I stand on it. But I did want to get to that one other thing Greg said. Greg said Arch Manning wouldn't be this hyped if not for his name. Well, here's the thing, Greg. You're probably right about that. I doubt we'd hear as much about Arch Manning. Now, he's a 5-star quarterback, and he's at the University of Texas, so we'd still hear about him. But you're right, we probably wouldn't hear about him as much if his last name wasn't Manning. But the insinuation there is there's nothing to that last name. Well, how dumb would we have been in retrospect if we had watched Archie Manning play his career? And then he's got a kid named Pate coming along, because this all happened. And Pate has a high-profile recruitment, because this actually happened. And he commits to Tennessee. And folks run around saying, it's that last name that's drawing the hype. Well, what did Peyton Manning go on to do? Then he's got a brother named Eli. And so just rinse, wash, and repeat. It's the last name. Dude goes on to win 2 Super Bowls, but it's just the last name, man. People are getting so caught up in it. So now we're going another generation down the lineage. Arch Manning, yeah, he's got that last name. What else does he have because of the last name? Number one, he's got total immersion for his entire lifetime into what it means to play quarterback at the highest level the sport can possibly put you in. Number two, obviously the genetics checked out. If you've ever seen him in person, you've watched him play, you understand genetically he didn't get shortchanged. That's another thing that matters. DNA matters a lot when it comes to your last name. And there's a very early indicator here that in the way he handles himself, it's textbook. Arch Manning, in reality, if he's as good as we think he'll be, Texas would be willing to accept some baggage along with that. No one will ever say that. Sark would never say that publicly, but most head coaches know if you're guaranteeing me that I'm getting superstar caliber talent at quarterback, a little diva personality every now and then, a little tough to handle in practice every now and then. That's just par for the course. That's part of it. We'll accept it because the reward at the end of the day makes it worth it. He hasn't had any baggage that we know about. Arch Manning's been like a model citizen over there. You hadn't heard a peep out of him. So you've got all the pluses with what that last name entails. The dude should be a punk, just like a snot-nosed kid. He's been handed everything his entire life. He's none of that. So all of the downside, all of the risk, I don't see. I do see the reward. You are probably right, Greg. He gets a lot more coverage before he's done anything of note at the college level because of what his last name was. But I don't just flippantly say that. Oh, well, other than having the last name Manning, other than the shooting, Miss Lincoln, how was the play? No, that other than, the part before the other than, it's pretty significant. That last name at the quarterback position, the sport of football, probably going to have some significance that it carries. But we won't overhype him. You have my word on that.